And here we go once again at chapter 5, verse 17 of the book of 1 Kings. And the king commanded, and they brought great stones, costly stones, and huge stones to lay the foundation of the house. Notes: it is said that the largest stone that has been found in modern Jerusalem, which may have come from the Temple of Solomon, is 38 feet 9 inches long and weighs a little bit over 100 tons. No doubt there were many stones like that one as well. Verse 18, and Solomon's builders and Hiram's builders did hew them, and the stone squarers, so they prepared timber and stones to build the house. Notes: understanding that there were at least 183,000 some odd laborers and overseers who worked on the temple, and considering the length of time it took to build the temple, about 7 years, along with the costly materials, one can understand the reason for the price tag in modern day dollars. To duplicate the temple now and to build it in the same manner it was built then, using the same type of equipment, the price tag would be over 1 trillion, possibly many trillions. Chapter 6. And it came to pass in the 480th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziph, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of the Lord. Notes: the 480-year number given in the text has been debated for many centuries. It is virtually impossible to tally up the years of the judges, considering that the possibility exists that some of these times overlapped. I personally feel that the number 480 years is correct as stated, but with the following variations. This verse illustrates the promise that God not only forgives sin, but forgets it as well. Thus the years of Israel's bondage to the nations are omitted. The lesson at the same time is taught that years or days spent in bondage to the world are forever lost. Thus what appears to be a chronological error in the sacred text is found to be a designed message of comfort and warning. Now, it is doubtful that the 480 years stated in the text include the whole period of time between the Exodus and the 4th year of Solomon's reign. It really refers to the 480th year of the security of Israel as a nation. It does not include the 40 years of Sinai and the wandering in the wilderness, the period of the conquest of Canaan and division of the land, which would be about 10 years, or the 3 years of confusion under Abimelech and the 101 years of servitude during the Judges. It is believed that the entire period from the Exodus to the 4th year of Solomon was approximately 645 years. However, as stated, there is a possibility that some of the periods of the judges overlapped with other periods, which obviously could shorten the entirety of the time by a number of years. But this we actually do know. The beginning of the construction of the house of the Lord, as designated here by the Holy Spirit, was extremely significant in the great plan of God. Continuing. And the house which King Solomon built for the Lord, the length thereof was 60 cubits, and the breadth thereof 20 cubits, and the height thereof 30 cubits. Notes: counting 18 inches to the cubit, this would mean that it was 90 feet long, 30 feet wide, 45 feet high. Verse 3, and the porch before the temple of the house 20 cubits, which would be 30 feet, and the length thereof according to the breadth of the house 10 cubits, which would be 15 feet, was the breadth thereof before the house. Notes: now, according to the chronology of Ushur, Solomon began building the temple in about 3000 BC in our month of May. That I don't know exactly if that's been confirmed, but that's probably a pretty darn good guess. Verse 4, and for the house he made windows of narrow lights. And against the wall of the house he built chambers round about, against the walls of the house round about, both of the temple and of the Holy of Holies, and he made chambers round about. Notes. Now some of your translations will say oracle, but it's talking about the Holy of Holies. But anyways, the floors were divided by partitions into distinct compartments. We'll cover those a little bit better. Verse 6. The nethermost chamber was 5 cubits broad, 7.5 feet, and the middle was 6 cubits abroad, which would be 9 feet, and the third was 7 cubits abroad, which would be 10.5 feet. For without in the wall of the house he made narrowed rest round about, that the beams should not be fastened in the walls of the house. Notes. These measurements are those of the interior. The remarkable way in which this thing was built should be of note. The stories were shaped and prepared beforehand in the quarry, so that there was nothing to do on their arrival in the temple area but to fit the stones to their place in the building. Verse 7. And the house, when it was in building, was built of stone made ready before it was brought thither, so that there was neither hammer nor axe nor any tool of iron heard in the house while it was in building. Notes. I'm going to say it flatly. The plans for this building were totally and completely of the Lord and none of man. In fact, they were given to David, but he was not allowed to construct the edifices, that being the task of his son who succeeded him. As the tabernacle, the temple in all of its grace symbolized Christ and his atoning, mediatorial, and intercessory work, inasmuch as the Holy Spirit would be the one who would occupy the Holy of Holies in this building. It was to be constructed in an absolute silent manner. For a structure of this nature, especially considering the huge stones and whatnot, this presents an astounding feat, to say the least. Also, this is one of the many reasons that the construction of this structure cost so much to build. One of the most, probably the most beautiful building in world history. Too bad it's in shambles now. There's only the base of it that's left that I know of. Maybe some stones round about, but nonetheless, just the description of this is just amazing, really. Verse 8. The door for the middle chamber was in the right side of the house, and they went up with the winding stairs into the middle chamber and out of the middle into the third. So he built the house and finished it, and covered the house with beams and boards of cedar. And then he built chambers against all the house, 5 cubits, which would be 7.5 feet high, and they rested on the house with timber of cedar. And the word of the Lord came to Solomon, saying, Concerning this house which you are in building, if you will walk in my statutes, and execute my judgments, and keep all my commandments to walk in them, then will I perform my word with you, which I spoke unto your father David. Verse 11 was probably through the prophet Nathan, but anyways, verse 12. While no man was able to keep the law perfectly, and for any number of reasons, still the idea was that every effort was to be made to do so. If the heart was after God, a desire to carry out his will, and to do so at all cost, even though at times the law was broken, a repentant heart would always automatically see an instant restoration. And we'll have to pick up in chapter 6, verse 13. Thank you, and God bless.